Imagine that every time you get angry, you give your power to someone else. Anger seems like a natural reaction, but did you know that it doesn't solve problems? It creates new ones. It destroys your peace of mind, your relationships, and even your health. But here's the key. It's not inevitable. You can change your attitude towards anger once and for all. Today I will show you how to get rid of this emotion and become the master of your reactions. Not theoretically, but practically. In this video, we will analyze an approach that has been helping people to control themselves and live more peacefully for hundreds of years. Are you ready to learn how to do it? The problem of anger. Anger is an emotion that is hard to ignore. It flares up suddenly, sometimes even without our realizing it, and often drives our actions, leaving us in ruins. It is one of the strongest and most destructive emotions that is deeply rooted in our nature, but which we often underestimate. Why do we get angry? How does it affect us and our loved ones? And most importantly, is it possible to cope with anger and use it for good rather than harm? Anger is a reaction. It occurs when something goes wrong, when we expect it to, when we face injustice or obstacles on the way to our goals. It is an emotion that is born inside us, but often directed at the outside world. People, situations, circumstances. Anger is fueled by our body's energy. We feel tense, heart palpitations, sweating, and sometimes even trembling. But anger is not a simple emotion. It is complex because it always has a basis. Fear, frustration, a sense of powerlessness or loss of control. Anger becomes a shield that we use to protect ourselves from pain or vulnerability. We think that anger makes us strong, but in reality, it destroys us and our environment. There are several key reasons why people experience anger. Disappointed expectations. We often create ideas in our heads about how things should happen or how people should behave. But when reality does not meet our expectations, we feel irritated, which quickly turns into anger. For example, you expected a coworker to do their part of the work on time, but they didn't. You are angry because your expectations have been violated. The need for control. People tend to seek control over their lives. But when things get out of control, tardiness, injustice, unfulfilled promises, we feel powerless, and anger becomes a way to regain a sense of power. Personal trauma or insecurity. Anger is often a mask for other emotions, such as pain or fear. If a person feels threatened by his or her ego or reputation, he or she may explode in anger to avoid vulnerability. Anger never solves problems. On the contrary, it creates new ones. When we give in to anger, our words and actions become rash. We may say things we regret or do things that will destroy trust in us. Imagine this situation. You go to a store and the salesperson is unfriendly. You start raising your voice, demanding justice, but are met with even more resistance. Other customers look at you with suspicion, and the salesperson simply closes all questions without any desire to help you. Instead of solving the problem, you get even more stress and a bad mood. Anger destroys not only relationships with other people, but also your health. Constant anger and stress increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, reduce immunity, and even affect life expectancy. Anger is a natural emotion that cannot be avoided, but you can learn to manage it. Stop. The first step is to recognize the moment when you start to get angry. If you feel anger coming on, pause. Take a deep breath several times and count to 10. This will help slow down your emotional reaction and give yourself time to think. Rethink the situation. Ask yourself the following questions. Is this situation really worthy of anger? Can I influence it? Often we get angry about things that are out of our control and waste our energy on them. Think of anger as a signal. Instead of letting anger control you, use it as a tool for self-discovery. Ask yourself, what exactly upset me? What expectations were not met? Practice compassion. Learn to look at the situation from the other person's point of view. Perhaps the person who annoyed you did not want to hurt you, but is going through a difficult period. Release your anger in an environmentally friendly way. If the emotion still builds up, find a way to release it that won't harm you or others. It can be physical activity, writing your thoughts on paper, or even a simple walk. It is important to learn to understand why we are angry and to control our reactions. The ability to manage anger is the path to a harmonious life, better relationships, and inner peace. After all, anger doesn't solve problems, it only makes them worse. So, instead of letting it control you, take control. The philosophy of Stoicism is one of the most practical systems of thought that helps people live a more harmonious, intelligent, and stable life. One of the key themes of Stoicism is the management of emotions, among which anger occupies a special place. The Stoics considered anger to be one of the most destructive emotions, preventing a person from acting reasonably, fairly, and maintaining inner peace. In this text, we will look at how Stoicism approaches the problem of anger, what advice Stoic thinkers left us, and how these principles can be applied in modern life. Stoicism is based on the fundamental distinction between what we can control and what is beyond our control. It is a simple but profound concept. Anger often arises when we try to influence something that is beyond our control. For example, we can get angry at the weather, at the behavior of other people, or at unforeseen events. However, the Stoics emphasize that it is useless and harmful to spend energy on things that are beyond our control. It only increases our irritation and makes us weak in the face of circumstances. Seneca called anger short-term madness in his writings. He explained that under the influence of anger, a person loses the ability to think rationally and make the right decisions. Anger clouds the mind, forcing us to act impulsively, which often leads to irreparable mistakes. The Stoics emphasize that reasonableness and moderation are the key to a virtuous life, and anger is the enemy of these virtues. Epictetus in his discourses emphasized that the source of anger is our own thoughts about events, not the events themselves. He wrote, "It is not what is happening that disturbs people, but their perception of it." For example, if someone behaves rudely, it is not the rudeness itself that causes our anger, but our interpretation of that behavior. We might think, "This person doesn't respect me," or "he is deliberately provoking me." But if we change our thoughts about the situation, the anger will lose its power. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor and philosopher, left a lot of wise advice on anger management in his Meditations. He wrote that the best way to overcome anger is to realize that those who annoy us are acting according to their nature. People do what they think is right, even if it is wrong. Instead of getting angry, try to understand them. This idea of accepting the nature of other people helps to maintain inner peace. The Stoics offered several practical strategies for overcoming anger that are still relevant today. The first principle is to recalibrate expectations. Anger often arises when reality does not meet our expectations. We expect people to be honest, considerate, and friendly, and when they are not, we feel disappointed and angry. But the Stoics remind us that the world does not have to meet our expectations. People have the right to be who they are. If we accept this, we can avoid many situations that provoke anger. The second principle is the practice of pausing before reacting. When we are faced with a situation that makes us angry, it is important to stop and give ourselves time to think. Marcus Aurelius advised in such moments to remember that the mind is designed for understanding, not for impulsive reaction. Instead of responding to the provocation, try taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or just thinking, "Is this situation worth my anger?" Often, the pause itself helps you see the problem in a different light. Another important principle is accepting other people's mistakes. The Stoics believe that human nature is imperfect. Each of us is prone to making mistakes, and this is normal. If someone does something wrong, it is not a reason to be angry, but an opportunity to show understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone acts wrong, it is their problem, not yours. You can choose to be upset about it or accept it as a fact." Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you're riding public transportation and someone accidentally pushes you. Your first reaction is irritation. You might think, "How could this person be so rude?" But if you apply the principles of Stoicism, you can stop and think, "This person probably didn't mean to offend me. It was a simple incident." Instead of getting angry, you can just smile and continue your day without any stress. Another example. At work, your colleague criticizes your idea at a meeting. Your first reaction is indignation. But if you pause and think about it, you can see that the criticism can be constructive. Perhaps your colleague just wanted to express his opinion, and it was not directed at you personally. Instead of getting angry, try to calmly discuss the situation and find a common solution. Stoicism also teaches us to see anger as an opportunity for self-development. Every time we feel anger, it's a signal that we have something to work on. For example, if you are annoyed by the behavior of other people, it may be a sign of your own intolerance. If you get angry because you fail, it may mean that you are too attached to the outcome. Stoics advise using anger as a mirror to show us our weaknesses and help us become stronger. Practicing Stoicism does not mean suppressing emotions. Rather, it is about rethinking them and channeling them in a constructive way. Anger itself is not a problem. The problem arises when we let it control us. The Stoics remind us that we always have a choice, to give in to anger or to remain calm and reasonable. Another important aspect of anger management is the ability to distract oneself from the situation. When we are angry, it is important not to take action in a state of emotional high. It's best to pause and physically move away from the source of the anger. For example, if you are in an argument, you can take a short break by going for a walk or simply go to another room. The physical distance gives you the opportunity to calm down, restore your inner balance, and return to the situation with a calmer and more reasonable mind. Distractions can also include a change of activity that allows you to shift your attention to something neutral, such as reading a book or doing some exercise. It is also helpful to pay attention to your body language. When we are angry, our body reacts with tension, our shoulders rise, our hands clench into fists, and our facial expressions change. If you notice that your body is tense, try to consciously relax your muscles, straighten your shoulders, and take a few deep breaths. Restoring a relaxed physical posture helps to change the emotional reaction and regain control of the situation. Finally, it is important to learn to see the situation from a different perspective. This can not only reduce anger, but also improve relationships with other people. When you are angry about someone's behavior, try to put yourself in that person's shoes. Perhaps their reaction was caused by stress or personal problems. Understanding that other people may have their own reasons for their behavior helps to reduce anger levels and allows you to respond in a more compassionate way. Managing anger is not an instantaneous process, but an ongoing practice. Each technique, from deep breathing to gratitude, is a tool that helps us maintain inner calm in difficult situations. It is important to understand that anger can be controlled and that each of us has the power to choose how to react to what is happening around us. After all, anger is a choice. We always have the opportunity to choose how to react to external events. And this is where Stoicism comes in, offering us powerful tools to maintain inner peace, regardless of what is happening around us. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control all circumstances, but we can control our reaction to them. This realization gives us the freedom not to give in to the first impulse of anger and instead choose peace, rationality, and calm. But it's worth remembering that change doesn't happen overnight. We can't stop being angry right away if we're used to it, but it's important to realize that every small step towards self-control is significant progress. Practicing breathing techniques, reflecting in a diary, analyzing situations, and giving thanks are all tools that take time and patience to become habitual and natural for us. However, with each use of these methods, we strengthen our ability to respond calmly and consciously, which ultimately brings great benefits. So, the next time you feel anger starting to take over, pause. Ask yourself, is this situation under my control? Is it worth wasting emotions on something I can't change? The choice is always yours. By accepting this control, you will take the first step towards inner peace and harmony. I encourage you to try these techniques and share your experience. How do you deal with anger? What techniques have helped you? Let's work together to achieve calmness and develop the ability to remain sane, even in the most difficult situations. Only by taking small steps can we achieve big results.